But when I did my first paid show, I let it go. And I'm going to tell you, it was such a freeing experience. I don't know how to explain this, but it was like all of a sudden, like the chains came off or something. You know, I could be myself and people, you know, they accepted me for who I am instead of me trying to, you know, tiptoe and be a certain way to please people or, you know, to be accepted. I just became myself.
Welcome to Second Act Stories. I'm your host for today's episode, Scott Merritt.
And I'm Andy Levine, the co-host for today. Scott, today's guest is Patty Forehand, and she spent her entire career as a teacher in Georgia. Not that unusual, but then she made the transition to stand-up comedy.
Yeah, that's right. And God, how much fun was it talking to her? Patty was an elementary school teacher for 31 years, which she says was a calling, and she worked until she retired. But after that official retirement, she knew she had to try something else, so she decided to pursue stand-up comedy, which she said was like another calling, which was really interesting. That's what she's doing today.
So we'll start with Act 1, which is her career as a teacher.
Here's Patty explaining how she wound up in the classroom.
I love children. I was always a babysitter, and I thought, hey, well, maybe I can do education. So I went into education, and I found out that was just a calling that I was called to at that time. So I did that for 31 years, and it was absolutely amazing. Did not think I would ever leave it.
Were you the funny teacher?
I was the funny teacher. I was the funny teacher. I enjoyed doing silly things with the kids. We would sing. We would have days where if they wanted to ask to do something, whatever, we had to sing it. So we'd have days where we just sang everything. And I have a horrible voice, by the way. So all day long it would be like, Miss Forehand, may I go to the bathroom? You know, that kind of thing. I would do silly stuff like that because I really felt like kids needed to have fun while they were at school. So yes, I was a silly teacher.
How did you weave humor into your lessons?
Oh, with kids, you know, anything is funny. They just think, they love it, you know, when you just do something unexpected. So first of all, I would think of my classes kind of as a show. Every time we did some new material or whatever, I would think of it as like a drama show because I was very into drama in high school. So I would want to make it fun. So my hook for each lesson would be something big, whether it was an experiment or, you know, a funny joke on their level, which, by the way, the kids that I taught, they really love knock-knock jokes. So, you know, but, you know, just try to make it fun, especially the hook.
So with kids, you say anything is funny.
Yes. Adults
are an entirely different animal. Right. So how do you translate that into making adults laugh?
Well, adults, I have found they're just big kids. they like the unexpected. They like all of the drama stuff too. So I just really think about an audience first. That's the big thing. You can't have a set that works for everyone. You have to have 100 sets, and you have to know your audience before you go and perform. You know, some of the things that I have for an audience at Laughing Skull Lounge, which is mainly made of college kids or, you know, young adults, would not be the same one that I would do for a group of women or for a group of teachers. I mean, you have to know the people that you're performing for, and then you have to make a set that's going to reach them that they can identify with and, you know, things that they'll find funny.
I've seen some of your stand-up work.
Yes.
And
I know where you're going with this.
It's very dirty.
The dirty stuff that you saw is mainly what I do with clubs and bars and, you know, places where they serve alcohol. And I do say that I enjoy that kind of humor, which is really funny because I am, a retired elementary school teacher, and I'm not a prude, but I was always, by the standards kind of person. It is, it was an outlet for me too. It was something like, I can't, because when you teach, sometimes you want to go, damn it, sit down, Gerald, but
Right.
you can't, right? So you're always so nice and you never speak your mind and you always watch what you're saying. And so it was just an outlet to be able to let loose and, go to that type of humor. So
Let's talk about that for a second, because people generally think, there's like a proper Southern woman, probably raised in a very religious family. You are of retirement age, so there's sort of this common conception of what to expect, and then you open your mouth, and that doesn't track with what you're actually doing on stage.
right.
Is there a deliberate decision to take advantage of that?
Well, I'm going to tell you, the second class that I took was with Marshall Childs at Laughing Skull Lounge and E&A Bear. And they really had us journaling. They wanted us to write so many minutes a night, and they wanted us to really find our genuine selves for our comedy. They didn't want us to mimic anyone. When I took that class, we had just become empty nesters. It is it's like your second honeymoon or something. I mean, you miss the kids, but also, you have more bedrooms, you have more, you're by yourself, you're bored. So, what should we do? So anyway, I think that I was going through a period of, rediscovering my husband at that time. So what happened is I found out a lot of my jokes were dirty, and I wasn't trying to go there. It was just happening, and they told me to embrace it. And I think that it is something that attracted a lot of attention to my comedy, is the juxtaposition of what comes out of my mouth and how I look and the age I am and my background. But I do want to tell you, I did come from a religious background. My parents were religious, but my mother cursed like a sailor. A curse word sometimes is like an exclamation mark.
Yeah, I use a lot of punctuation myself. So there's an interesting point to be made there, in that was sort of like, that's what happens inside the house, and what happens outside the house is a whole different picture, right?
Yes.
So how did it feel when you brought it out in such a public way?
Well, when I did my open mic, I was toned down so much because I was still teaching. That was my last year of teaching. But when I did my first paid show, I let it go. And I'm going to tell you, it was such a freeing experience. I don't know how to explain this, but it was like all of a sudden, like the chains came off or something. I could be myself, and people, they accepted me for who I am. I think I opened up more socially even. I go into a room and I'm like, they're either going to like me or not like me, and it doesn't matter anymore.
So let's talk about authenticity for a second.
Okay.
Did you feel like there was something missing now that you look back? As you were teaching, as you had this sort of elementary school teacher persona, was there an element of your personality that you felt like was being shut down?
I do actually feel that way. I don't know why I felt that I could not. I was the kind of person, I didn't really go out for drinks with the fellow teachers after school or whatever. I just, for some reason, I felt, we have to be, we can't drink. We can't, we don't have sex with anybody, that kind of thing. I felt like, I don't know, I just felt like I had to be better or whatever, high standards, which I do believe we do have to be good role models for kids, but I don't believe that you have to put on this fake person, that we are all people and we all go through the same things.
And how did the experience teaching inform your approach to stand-up?
Well, it kind of changed my view of thinking when you're in front of an audience. But I think it helped me to realize I can read cues from faces and from people and the way they're responding. And I'm flexible. I can switch up. I can go, oh, this vein is not working right now. I need to change to another. It helped me to know that everything doesn't work for everyone and that you need to read those cues and you better be ready to change it up.
So talk to me about the power of laughter.
Oh, my gosh. Well,
anybody can get a room full of kids laughing, right? All you have to do is something stupid or silly. Mm-hmm. Is there a difference between earning that laugh from a group of kids and earning that laugh from a group of adults, whether it's in a club or in a meeting or anything else?
Well, with kids, it's so spontaneous. And when you hear them laughing, it's not really something you've planned for or that you expected. And so it's kind of rewarding in a different way. But with an audience, I mean, that's kind of your job. You are there to entertain them and you want that laugh. That laugh is your reward. And so it's a different way of looking at it from one audience to another. They're both audiences, really, if you think about it. Teachers are performers, but it's just a different type of reward that you get from them. You don't expect it from one group. You're hoping that they do it. The other group, if you don't get that laughter, that you have failed.
Yeah, I've spoken to quite a few comedians and successful ones. And they talk about the first time they got a laugh.
Yes.
The first time they got that laugh from something that they wrote.
Yes.
And it's like the world's greatest dopamine hit.
It is. It is. I'm going to tell you that open mic night that I went to, I did not really expect to hear people laughing. I thought, I've seen comics before, and I know it's really hard, and I don't know if I have the right type of material that's going to have these people relate to this. And two, I didn't go to bars and things like that. So when I went into Laughing Skull Lounge, it is a whole different kind of venue. Right. I walk in and I had never been there before, and the first thing I see is a big, huge picture of a penis. So the first thing I thought is, am I supposed to be here? How is this going to go over? But I had written something about Walking Dead. I can't remember the joke, but it had something to do with Daryl and his bow or something. And it was slightly dirty, but not dirty. And so when I did that joke and they laughed, I thought, wow, oh my God. I tell you, I was amazed. I just wasn't expecting that. I was expecting silence maybe. I don't know. And especially when I saw the group, they were young kids and college kids, and not young kids, but young college kids in their early 20s. So I was scared. I was like, are they going to even like me? And they did kind of put me on late in the lineup. And I thought, well, first of all, they don't know me. And I'm old. I mean, everybody else, they were all young and hip. And, they were talking about things that I didn't. I had to go look up later, but there was a girl that went on ahead of me, and she was a young girl in her 20s. And she was talking a lot about sex. So when I first got on stage, I started playing off of her and going, if I was your mom kind of thing, and the kids loved it. They were just dying laughing, and I was like, I don't even know what that is. What is that? That kind of thing. So I was playing off of her and then doing my own jokes, and it just worked. It was like magic. I knew that night I had to pursue it. I had to, that this had to be what I did with the rest of my life. And I remember I started looking for classes, and I went home and told my husband, and he said, but that looks like a class that you would only take if you want to be a real stand-up person. And I said, that's what I want to be. And so, it was just amazing.
What did he think of your decision to actually pursue it, not just as a kind of one-time thing?
So he's always been very supportive. Anything I've tried and, anything I've done or whatever, even, going back to even weird haircuts and things like that, he's always been, you do what you want to do kind of thing. This is your life, do it. But at the same time, you could tell he was more concerned with the fact that I had to drive all the way from Perry to Atlanta by myself, the big city. But I think once I started performing and, he came to my shows and saw that, that I could do this and that people were laughing. And I think he was even, like the first few shows, they were all about him, like about our love life kind of thing. Nothing bad, but, I think he even liked that. I mean, he was like, oh my God, that joke you did about me with the, it was kind of like I think it fed his ego a little bit.
What about your kids?
Oh my
What was
gosh.
their reaction?
I had not told my son about the kind of material that I did. And he was living in Atlanta at the time. And he just showed up to the show that night met my husband there. And I didn't know that he was coming. And I had all these dirty sex jokes about his dad. And so I thought, oh my God, he laughed so hard. And my daughter is naturally funny. She should be a stand-up comedian, but she does not like to get in front of an audience. She's more like when she's on the phone to me and telling me all these things, I'm just laughing my head off.
When I asked Patty about mentors, she wasted no time giving me an answer. And as fate would have it, it turned out being someone her daughter loves.
Oh my gosh, I just love Lace Larrabee. She is my biggest mentor, even though she's like, fourth of my age or whatever. She is my biggest mentor. And she's the one who kind of got me out there because she's the one who told Washington Post about me. So I love Lace Larrabee. But anyway, when I took her class, I was like, yeah, Hannah, I'm taking another comedy class, and it's run by this comedian called Lace Larrabee. Lace Larrabee! Oh, my God, I know her. I watch her on YouTube. I mean, she knew all about her. So I'm just going to say she's always been go for it, Mom. So I've had the biggest support system.
What was the feedback that you got from the community as they started to hear about what you were doing now?
Well, I think I've gotten really good feedback, except, I do have a few friends who, I know they posted, the waxing one. Because I was raised in the 70s, and my carpet is shag. So, when I went to get waxed, do you know that there are different styles? Yeah, there is one called the Bermuda Triangle. Now, I started to get that one, but I was afraid my husband would get up in there and never find his way out. And a friend of mine, she just said, Patty, that's a little dirty. You could still be funny and be clean. And, I explained to her, well, that was the audience that was doing it for. And I do love the dirty comedy, and I'll do it when I'm in the right audience. I'm not going to, I'm not going to go to a church and do dirty comedy. I'm not going to go to a teacher's workshop and, talk about a penis. I'm not going to do that. But it's always like, grow up, we're adults. We can have fun with life. I'm not saying gross things. I mean, I think it's okay to have fun with things that you do in life.
What's the most surprising thing that's happened since you first took hold of a microphone?
The Washington Post first, the fact that they reached out and then they did that article and I was in that article. I just can't believe that. And then Tamron Hall and the Today Show and Michael Clinton's book, those kind. I think whenever those things happen, I'm still like, why do you want to talk to me?
Do you realize how interesting your story is?
I don't think I do because I lived it. I think when I talk to anyone, listening to their story is fascinating because we all have such different things that happen, and it's kind of, so I see it in that vein that maybe, they didn't have the background that I have or whatever, but I still can't believe it's interesting enough that things happen like this.
There's an interesting sort of juxtaposition between working in an environment with lots of rules.
Yes.
And now transitioning to working in an environment with no rules.
Yes.
Right? How do you reconcile that?
I still can't believe it, that I can be free to say whatever I want. I do kind of monitor myself still, though, because even though there aren't rules, I never want to hurt anybody with my comedy. So even though there aren't rules and I could pretty much get on a mic and say whatever the hell comes into my head, I want to make sure that it's something that's going to make someone laugh and feel good, because to me, that is what comedy is.
What is your favorite dirty word?
Well, I really like the word penis, and it bugs my husband to death, because when I do a joke, like I did a joke and, I was referring to something on him and I said penis, and he said, please, Patty, call it anything but penis. Call it a dick. Call it this, call it that. He said, just penis just sounds so weird. But to me, it's so funny. And I have this joke where I talk about, dick pics. And I call them penile photographs. And it just kills the audience. So I think that word penis has power to it or something. I don't know.
Kind of matches up with the persona that people expect from seeing you.
Yes, I think so too. I do too. I think it's being dirty but still proper at the same time, using the correct anatomic word or something, right? So.
What would you tell somebody who's considering a second act that seems, vastly different from what they're doing right now, and maybe is a little bit intimidating, like we all know stand-up can be?
We have a tendency to overthink things. Like, I probably would have sat on my couch for 2 or 3 years after I retired thinking, do I want, somebody said that I'm funny. Should I be a comic? And never really taken that first step, unless I forced myself, which is what I did. I said, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell a whole huge group of people that I'm going to go out for an open mic, and then I'm going to sign up for it. Because once you tell a bunch of people, you can't chicken out. You can't go, I decided not to do it. You're stuck. You have to at least try it. And when I did it, I found out that was exactly what I wanted to do. I know that's a big, long, roundabout way of get off your butt and do it, is what I'm saying. Get off your butt and do something. And I'm just telling you right now that life is short. You have to live it while you're here. So if there's a passion that you have, if there's something that you want to try, don't limit yourself. Throw all those in a closet and lock it and just go do what you want to do. I mean, do it.
Scott, that is a great episode, and I'm also pleased to share that is episode 144 in the book. So great job, my friend.
And if I'm not mistaken, that's a perfect square.
Well, yes, I hadn't thought about that. Okay. I wanted to ask you 2 questions following this episode. You've interviewed a number of really talented comedians, Brian Quinn, Paul Mercurio, Adam Carolla, and now Patty Forehand. How is Patty different?
Well, that's an interesting question. So I think Patty is different in probably 2 ways, right? So Patty started much later in life than all those other guys started their careers. Patty had a 31-year career as a teacher, and she officially retired, and then she started to pursue stand-up. Those other guys were pursuing it much, much younger. But what's really interesting is that for her 31-year career, she was already performing, right? Teachers are performers. They're in front of a different kind of an audience, but they're still performing. And so different material, different audience, but still performance.
Very different material. I'm certainly hoping when she was a teacher, she wasn't frequently using the term penis in front of her elementary school kids. But it did strike me interesting when she made this career change to working in comedy clubs, being a comedian. She opted not to work clean. And did that strike you as surprising?
Well, especially when I first saw her first video, when I started to research her, I was pretty caught off guard. She's this proper Southern woman, and then she starts working blue, and it's a bit of a shock. But she even referenced, it depends on the audience that she's in front of, the kind of material that she does. But when she's working in a club and people are drinking, yeah, she definitely says things that you wouldn't say in front of a classroom. And in spite of the fact that the community around her may object a little bit, right? Her own home community, what it really comes down to is authenticity, right? She is who she is. She's going to do the material that's natural and authentic to her, and that's what she's doing.
For those who want to learn more about Patty and perhaps even see her perform, where can they learn more?
The best place to follow her is on Instagram. She's at Forehand Patricia. And of course, anybody who's in the Atlanta area can see her live. She regularly performs in theaters and clubs around town. If you like this episode, you may enjoy some of the other episodes where we interviewed comedians. Brian Quinn in March 2023, Adam Carolla in November 2022, and Paul Mercurio in August 2022. You can find those all in the podcast history in your favorite app.
We hope you will keep listening and subscribe to Second Act Stories on your favorite podcast app. We hope you'll like us on Facebook, follow us on LinkedIn, and share us with your friends. Don't go away. There are more Second Act Stories just around the corner.